So, Eric Watson, good to have you. First of all, just to do a little conversating and want folks to kind of know a little about you. You come from humble beginnings, man. I followed your career, and you've just blossomed. But one of the things I know you spent years with the sheriff's department.
Right.
So, talk a little bit about that and kind of what you did. The areas that you touched while you were with the sheriff's department.
Well, first, it's a pleasure being here, and I've known you for many years. You know, I'm a Charleston native. I grew up, matter of fact, right downtown.
Wow.
Many years ago. I don't want to give you my age, but many years ago. I'm a graduate from Burke High School. I grew up on Anson Bower projects. And I can tell you, my plight many years ago, I was kind of lost, confused, didn't know what direction I wanted to go in life, period. Which is typical for inner city youth, particularly black kids, black boys. And my interaction with law enforcement growing up as a kid was negative. I would say 95% of my interaction was negative. This one particular incident involving me and an officer kind of changed my life. I call that my pivotal moment. It made me recognize that you have a person of authority can take your freedom just like that.
Right.
So that launched me on a path, a journey of education, defining myself as a human being, as a citizen. So what I did, I launched on a journey to becoming law enforcement. I got hired by the sheriff back in 94, 93. My career started as a detention deputy, and that's where my foundation started right there. And from there, I worked my way up the ranks from the jailhouse, from the correction facility to deputy sheriff. And while at the sheriff's office, I dip and dab in a little bit of everything. I patrol deputy for a couple of years, investigations for many years. Got promoted to sergeant. Been on patrol for about a year and a half as a supervisor. And I went to internal affairs, where my responsibility was to investigate misconduct involving officers and deputies. From there, I got promoted to lieutenant, went back to investigations for 3 years, got promoted to captain, stayed in investigations, and the sheriff appointed me as a spokesperson for 5 years. And that was a journey, that was an eye-opener. I'm naturally a shy guy.
Yeah.
You know me, I'm a quiet guy,
Yeah.
so that was not my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I made it work. I made it work. And from there, I got promoted to chief deputy of operations, where that put me over all operations. I did that role for like 3 years, 2.5 years. And I just recently got appointed as Deputy County Administrator of Public Safety for Charleston County Government in the past 5 months. So that's what I'm doing right now for Charleston County Government.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job, and I'll have to tell you, I disagree with you because I thought the public information officer was the best one for you. You really did a fantastic job, but let me tell you why. Because I just saw your reach that was, although public information was kind of, for news media and all, but you took it to another level where your concentration was mainly community relations more so than public relations, which was key then, and I think it's key now with all the stuff that we've got going on, not only here in Charleston, but across the nation itself. And that's why I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about as well also, seeing what we see here. And we've got, the young kids that are here and protesting or doing whatever it is that they're doing. But what if you had to to say there was something or things that you have done to kind of work with groups or work with individuals towards racial equality and showing them, speaking to them about what are some of the things that you've done in your work or in your career?
Well, I've been speaking in youth groups for many years, and one thing I will always highlight to them the importance of education. Education helps broaden your mind, see things on a different scale. As far as the protest, I encourage people to protest. That's their right. Peacefully. Right. That's the problem. When you deviate from that peaceful aspect of it, and you start create some unrest in the community, you have just diluted your entire point, your entire purpose, your entire message. So when I go out there and speak to kids of all races, all ages, I encourage them to educate themselves. And if you're unhappy with a system or a process, do what I did. I became a part of the process, a part of our system. There were some things back then to this day that needs to be fixed, and that was my goal. My goal was to put myself in that system, understand that system, educate myself about the processes, and fix things that I can fix. And that's one way that they can do if they want to make change or affect change is through education and become a part of that system.
Because that kind of leads into that second question is, we want them to be involved, and like you said, peaceful protest is a good thing. But are there specific things that they could probably be doing, like the right here, right now, to still get the point across without, even if it had to be in the streets? It's raining today,
Right.
and instead of marching, are there other avenues that they can?
There are a few things they can do. They don't want they can volunteer their time and become part of the public sector. Let's say, for example, government, and understand while connecting with their elected leaders and get a better understanding on their thought process on certain things. But this is what the young people wants. Okay, the young people they want to have a voice at the table. So us being the older generation, we have to acknowledge that and recognize that. Because if we don't, what's going to happen? Their voices are going to go unheard, and we're going to have issues within our community. So I always welcome them to always go before your county council, your city council, and try your best to reach out to them. With that said, our lawmakers have to allow them a seat at the table to be heard. And you have some generations, older generations, that don't believe in that, and that's where the generations collide and clash. My advice to them: you have two options: allow them to sit at the table, or gracefully move out of the way and let a younger leadership take over. Because this is bigger than George Floyd. This is bigger than this is a movement that has reached around the world. So we don't understand that this is a bigger movement right here. Our head is stuck in the sand. Quite frankly.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was going to get to as well. Also, is the older generation and the kind of the leaders. It's as you were saying. They've got to open their minds, open their ears, and listen, because again, it's not going away. So you either you become a part of the problem or a part of the solution, one or the other.
Exactly, and that's. Now, going back 2 weeks ago when we had the protests and things happened down here, yeah, that's not what we're looking for. And when I go out and speak to young groups, younger generation, now, matter of fact, I sit on the board of directors for Carolina Youth Development Center, and just yesterday I went to speak to the kids, and they brought that up, and I told them, I said, if you want your message to be heard, that is not the right way to do it. There's a right and a wrong way, and what happened that Saturday was totally wrong. But with that said, I told them I understand their frustration, their anger, and the emotions. If you don't understand the reason why they're upset, the reason why they're angry, we're kind of lost again. So we have to acknowledge that they have issues, concerns that we need to listen to it and hear.
So it sounds like it comes down to understanding, communicating, and really educating.
Right, and communication is key. Just like you and I, we're talking and collaborating. We're communicating. I've known you for many years, and that's one thing that you're great at. And trust me, when you was a PIO with North Charleston, and before that, I took lessons from you.
Well, thank you, Ann.
So trust me.
Yeah. So listen, if we had a crystal ball and we're looking 10, 15 years down the road, what do you see for not only here in Charleston, but for our nation, for race relations, and what path you see us on?
That is a great question. I have hope that is a better tomorrow for this country, for the state. In order for us to reach that level, we all have to acknowledge some things that happened in our history. We have to have an honest, true dialogue about race relations in this country. Here in Charleston, this is where most of it started. So, and I grew up here. This is my home. I love Charleston to the dearest, and I'm always loved this city. But we have to have honest, true, meaningful dialogue, and also we have to develop solutions and take actions. This is what they want to see. we can bring solutions to the table, but if you just sit on a table and not going anywhere and no action is being taken, well, we're defeating the purpose.
Because you're right. Some folks, some will say, well, the youth, the protesters, they need to have a plan of action. But you're right. If they develop the plan of action and they take it and no action is taken, then we're back to square one again.
Yeah, they've just completely lost trust and faith in government and their leaders. So at least allow them a voice at the table. Some things that we can work with them on, let's work with them on. Things that we can't, let's try our best to explain to them the reason why we can't work with them on it. And it is what it is. That's just reality. But we have to communicate and have meaningful dialogue.
Common denominator,
Yes, sir.
common denominator communication.
Yes, sir.
So we wrap up. Ask you kind of this one here, and it's just that repeat complete. If you had to say, "I'm hopeful for," or "hopeful that," what would it be for you? I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for that this country, this state, would come together. This is a great country. All right. I served 15 years in the military. My uncles, aunts, and cousins served this country. I have friends, relatives of all races. We are good. We are good people. We just have that small segment in this country that will be hell bent on dividing us. We got to find a way to avoid that small segment and focus on a positive aspect of being an American citizen. And I think by having an open dialogue and being upfront, being honest with one another, that it will come together as one community.
Think we can get there?
Well, I believe that we can get there. I have faith and confidence. And I spent 26 years carrying a badge, wearing a badge and carrying a gun. I will tell you this right here: the vast majority of men and women that wear the uniform are great people, are great servants. I've ran with them. I've watched them cry. I've watched them hurt, just like any average citizen. So they mean well. The only problem with that part of the profession, when we make mistakes, a few things happen, and it's not good. Okay, and that's what we're facing with today. But that is a profession that I stand proud and honor those people, those men and women who make the sacrifice. For you and I can sit here and talk and walk the streets peacefully. So.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is too. Just one thing about you, and I have to say too, you call it like it is. When they're wrong, you call it wrong. When they're right, you call it right. And like you say, you've got the small, very very small, minority in that may get into something, but for the most part, the majority of the police officers or law enforcement officers are good, hardworking people that they go out to serve and protect every day.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Welcome.
All right.